Hey guys, Conquistador here, and today we're overclocking the RTX 3070 graphics card. Easy go. Alright guys, so today I'm going to be talking about overclocking an RTX 3070. So, I'm going to show you first what just a general safe stable overclock, manual overclock is that you can apply to across the board for pretty much any 3070. There's some lower end 3070s like maybe a Zotac or maybe the base model Gigabytes that don't overclock just quite as much, so you might want to do it a little bit lower. But for like 90% of all the cards, if you want to get the most overclock out of them, this is what you're going to want to do. So first, I'm using an ASUS RTX 3070 TUF Gaming OC card. So I'm using a different overclocking software, and I'll explain why in just a second. But for a majority of the cases, I suggest first off downloading MSI Afterburner first, and also you'll have the option of downloading Riva Statistics Tuner also. So if you want to fine tune your overclocking for specific games, then when you're downloading the MSI Afterburner, then you also are going to want to download the Riva Statistics Tuner as well. So I recommend, if you're just not 100% sure, download Riva Statistics Tuner and MSI Afterburner all together. If you don't use it, then that's fine, but you'll have it just in case. That way you don't have to worry about it later. So anyways, after you've downloaded your MSI Afterburner and Riva Statistics Tuner, this is what's going to look like after you open it up. This is a separate overclocking software. I'll discuss it in just a second. But this is what it's going to look like. It might look a little bit different depending on what skin is on it. So for instance, say you might have got a little bit newer version of it. So there's a little cog right here. When you hold your mouse over it, it'll say settings. Click on that. You're going to go all the way to the tab on the far right, the user interface, and it's just the skins. You can change the skins. Maybe you want something different after you feel comfortable with it. You maybe change it to steampunk, for instance. You just select it, hit apply, and then that changes the skin. But I'm just going to keep it on this. This is usually what everybody sees when they first download it. It might be a little bit different, but that's probably about what most people see. And then also your temperature format. If you want it in Fahrenheit, you can. I recommend keeping it in Celsius because that's how like 99% of the world measures their temperatures. Unless you're comfortable with Fahrenheit too, you can do it. But if you don't understand the temperatures of your GPUs, I think it's important to leave in Celsius, and I'll explain that because it's best to learn it with that, because everything's measured in Celsius with computer temps and thermals. And just so you know, a good level on Celsius for your graphics card, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, is that under max load, it might hit into the 80s, but usually it should sit around in the 60 or 70s at max. If it's consistently in the 80s in Celsius with an overclock or just in general, then you need to improve the thermals or increase the fans on your graphics card. There's something, or there could be something wrong with your card in general. Maybe it needs new fans or whatever. Then that would be a hardware issue. So, or it could be your case might be too small. You're not getting enough cooling. You don't have enough fans or whatever. So But so just understanding that that your card should, when not playing a game, will idle around like the 30s or so. When playing a game at max load, it should it might hit around the 80s sometimes, but it should usually sit around anywhere between 40 to 60, sometimes 70 at most times. But just to give you an idea, if you don't know what temperatures to look for, those are what you're going to look for. Alright, so let's actually get onto the overclocking aspect. So first thing, you've got your MSI Afterburner and your Riva Statistics Tuner installed, and let's say for instance you're wanting to play with Cyberpunk. A safe, stable level. So first off, you're going to want to go back to your settings, go to your general tab, and right down here, these aren't normally checked. These will be unchecked at first when you first install. It'll say unlock voltage control and unlock voltage monitoring. So hold on just a sec. I'll show you what it's going to look like. So when you first download it and you go to your settings, these will not be checked. First thing you need to do is check unlock voltage control and unlock voltage monitoring. You're going to hit apply, and it'll say the changes you've made will be applied after restarting MSI Afterburner. Do you want to restart it now? You will hit yes, and it'll restart it. Now, for my particular graphics card, my BIOS and my graphics card will not allow me to change the core voltage like that. But in most graphics cards, this slider would be unlocked then. Let's just say, for example, you're using a Founders Edition card. Alright, so you're just going to take the core voltage and slide it all the way as far right as it'll go. That'll allow you to have higher thermals and be able to get higher clocks and all that too. And then again with the power limit all the way to the right and the temp limit all the way to the right. That'll give you just a more room, more thermals to work with. And just so you know, you cannot hurt your graphics cards as long as they've got the stock BIOS in them. And make sure your drivers are all up to date too. But if you happen to set anything too high, then what'll happen is that your card will crash and it'll reset back to default. So you don't have to worry about hurting your card unless you're using like a Kingpin or something where like everything's unlocked and it's a third-party BIOS or something like that, where those types of safety protocols are not there. Then you can hurt your card. But if you're using a card right out of the box, you put it in your system, none of this will hurt it. The worst that'll happen is that it'll crash and it'll reset. And if you feel like you're not happy with the settings or something like that, you can go down here and reset it, and it'll just set it all back to normal. But so make sure your core voltage is unlocked though. That's the first thing. You're gonna pull it all the way to the right. Usually that'll give it like plus 8% voltage, give or take. It just depends on the card. But for instance, a Founders Edition would be around plus 8%, I think. Power limit, I think a Founders Edition, I think it'll go up to 108%. My card, it's actually 112. And your temp, whatever it is, you're going to slide all those to the right, okay? Now your core clock and your memory clock, those you do not slide all the way to the right. You'll end up stressing your card too much, and then it'll end up crashing and resetting. So the fan speeds, unless you're getting like higher than normal thermals, leave it on auto because it should be fine. Now, all around, if you just want to do a quick overclock that's stable, then the video will end here. All you have to do is put your core clock to 100, and you can set your memory clock to about 1000. And you just go down to the check mark, hit apply, and you start up your game, and that's it. That's all you have to do. And now, as long as the game's running, 2 or 3 hours while playing and it's not crashing or anything, then your thermals are staying normal. It's not overheating. If after like 30 minutes it crashes or something, then you're getting overheating. You might want to drop these down some or whatever. Or maybe your case isn't getting enough cooling. So that would be a overheating problem usually. Or these are set too high and your card's not stable and it's crashing, so you'll have to lower them. So, but for like 90% of the cards out there, core MSI Afterburner, unlock the core voltage, put all the way to the right, power limit all the way, your temp limit all the way, and then your core clock plus 100, your memory clock plus 1000. Now these are for RTX 3070 cards. It will be something similar for other cards, but you need to check comparisons on other videos because it will not be these exact numbers. And then you can, if you're happy with that, then you can go down here, save, select profile 1. That's your stable clock. So whenever you want to play your game, say you're going to play Cyberpunk, open up MSI Afterburner, go to profile 1, hit the check mark, hit apply, and you can just start your game, and there you go. And it should be stable. Now, if it's a little bit of a lower end card, then it's not stable, it's crashing or whatever, then how I recommend is with the core clock, dropping them in increments of 10 until it is stable. Memory clock, you drop it in increments of 100, so like 900, and just go like that. But I would look at comparison videos for some of the more base models like the Zotac cards or like the Gigabyte cards. These might be a little bit too high for them. I think they might be a little bit too high, but I want to say that plus 100 and plus 1000 usually is pretty safe. But say you're using a little bit of a more higher end card, and you want to fine tune stuff, right? So everything's working normal and you've gotten comfortable with this stable level, and you're like, well, maybe I want to push my card a little bit more. I feel like I can push the card more. The thermals, the temperatures are staying normal. They're not going, hitting over in the 80s and crashing all the time, nothing like that. Looks like everything's staying pretty stable, and I feel like I can get more FPS out of it. So if you want to start fine tuning, and I'm just using Cyberpunk for an example, but you can, depending on the game, see there's different profiles. Different games will allow different clock speeds. So Cyberpunk might not allow as high of a clock as like Red Dead Redemption or vice versa. Just depending on the game. So that's why you have these different profiles. So, but say you're running your 3070, you've got all these settings, and you feel like you've got like an EVGA XC3 Ultra or something, and you feel like you can get more out of it. So that's where your Riva Statistics Tuner comes in. Again, you can just leave your fan on auto and all that. So Riva Statistics Tuner, that's going to allow you, and also you can use another program like 3D Mark, Port Royal with those ray tracing cards, and when you're running those, it'll give you a score at the end, so you can it slowly up these levels, and as long as while it's running that Port Royal, you're not seeing artifacting, things like that, then you can increase it a little bit at a time, and you're seeing the FPS increase. But say you want to fine tune it for a specific game, so that's where your Riva Statistics Tuner comes in then, alright? So then you'll go down to your settings. So go over here to on-screen display. Right here where it says toggle on-screen display, you'll just select it. For me, control O, not 0, control O. The letter O, not 0, control O. So while Cyberpunk's running, and make sure that Afterburner's turned on and you have, whatever overclock you have it set at. While Cyberpunk's running, then you can hit Control O, and up in the top left-hand corner, you can't see it here, but what's going to happen is you're going to be able to see it'll bring up like your FPS and GPU temperatures and all that, and how you're going to be able to set those up is with that. So after you've set it up so you can bring it up, this just allows you to bring up the display while you're playing the game. Go over here to monitoring. So you have all these different options. So for me, I'm just going to run the GPU temperature while the game's running so I can make sure that it's not overheating and it's staying pretty stable. And the only other thing I want is the frame rate. So that'll just give me the frames at that current time. You can do the average, but a frame rate I'm okay with. It just depends on what you want. You can have the different percentages and all that, but this is gonna allow you, when you toggle it on, I'll show you how you bring them up in your top left hand corner while the game's running. So say you want your GPU temperature, for instance. Select it, so it'll be highlighted. At first it won't be, or sometimes when you first start it, there might be a whole bunch. So down here is what will pop up. So I want my GPU temperature to pop up. So I'll go down here where the check mark is, show an on-screen display. So I'll make sure that's checked. So when I hit Control circle while Cyberpunk's running, a little screen will pop up on the top left-hand corner, and but you can adjust that too in more of the settings. You just got to play around with it however you want to do it. But in this case, it'll be the top left-hand corner for me, and I'll see the GPU temperature. If I want to take it off, then I'd hit Control circle again, and it would toggle off. I also want to see the frames, the FPS. So frames, again, showing on-screen display, and those two things will pop up in the top left-hand corner when I toggle it on. So say for instance, another thing is the temperature. Say you want to change the name of it. So you'll go down here where it's under graph limits. You'll check right here, override group name, and you'll type in what you want it to say. Say you want it to say, say you're using like a 2060, for example, or a 3080 instead, just for example. But for me, then you can type in whatever you want. GPU temp, whatever you want it to say. You'll type that in, make sure that's checked, and then you'll hit apply. So then when you toggle your on-screen display, whatever you've set it to, then when it pops up in the corner, the temperature in Celsius or Fahrenheit, whichever one you've set it to, this will appear next to it where it'll say GPU temp. In my case, I just have it say RTX 3070, and you'll have it apply. And then also I wanted the frame rates, the current frame rates happening at that time, to be on display. So again, I just named it, go down here, override group name, I just put FPS, frames per second, and then I'd hit apply. And if there's anything extra you want to add, you can add it or take it off by checking show an on-screen display like that. It would bring it up or take it off. So now you have to make sure you have Riva Statistics Tuner downloaded to be able to do that. Now in doing so, now you can see your GPU temps and your frames, your FPS, so you can for say like Cyberpunk. Then you can start fine-tuning. Say, okay, these are good, the game's stable, it's running good, but I feel like I can get more frames out of it, right? So I would suggest adjusting your core clock by 10 at a time, so increase that by like 110, and then the memory clock, increase it by 100. Alright, so then you'd run and then you hit apply. So then you're running your game. You've toggled your monitoring up in the corner, and you're seeing an increase in frames. Now sometimes, again, these can be set too high, and then you'll start seeing a drop in frames, or maybe you'll set them too high and the game will crash or whatever. So this will allow you to fine-tune it so that you can just push out a few more frames out of your cards, or maybe your game's crashing again, so maybe you need to lower it to like 80 because your game is crashing. Maybe you got your memory clock too high or whatever. So you can play around with these settings, and when you find, you find like that perfect setting, like maybe 120 is just a little bit too high and it's crashing, for instance, and you have your core clock set to like 1200. Maybe those settings, it's just a bit too high and it's crashing on Cyberpunk with whatever GPU you're using. Maybe it's crashing. So then you start with the memory clock, maybe just drop it down by 5 at a time. So then all of a sudden you drop that down to 115. Your memory clock, you'll drop that down to instead to 1150. And now the game's running stable. You have it applied and everything. Your temps are looking good. Everything's stable. And that's how you fine tune everything if you want to just really get it. But if that's too much for you, again, and you just want a stable starting point, just core voltage, slide all the way to the right. Your power limit, slide all the way to the right. And your temp, slide all the way to the right. Make sure your case is getting proper cooling and everything with that. And start off with 100 and 1000. And that's where you're going to start off. But say you've got it fine-tuned to however you want, and you're happy with that fine-tuning, and it's applied, and you know that. So not all games work the same. Red Dead Redemption might not be stable where Cyberpunk would be with that specific thing. So like I said, you go in the profiles, and then you just pick your profile, save it. Then profile 2 has that fine-tuned level. So you just go to profile 2 after you open it up and hit check. And you can toggle on and off your FPS or your GPU temperature, whatever, while you're doing it, and make sure everything's good. And you can adjust your ray tracing settings in 2 as well while you're playing a game. So that's how that works. In my case, my ASUS graphics card doesn't allow me to change the core voltage with MSI Afterburner. So now I'm just going to show you how the ASUS overclocking tool works. It's basically the same as MSI, but I'll just run it by you real quick so you can see how that works. Alright, so let's say MSI Afterburner doesn't work with your graphics card because of, in my instance, I have an ASUS RTX 3070 OC card. I can't adjust the voltage bar. So I'm using the software for the ASUS. This would be ASUS GPU Tweak II. So, and that brings this up. So it starts off with simple mode, actually. Let me bring up MSI Afterburner and just reset it, because that's... Now, I'm still going to use Riva Statistics Tuner because I can use that to bring up the chart in the top left corner to fine tune my ASUS card. So I'll just leave that running, so I can toggle it on, but I can't adjust the core voltage. So for ASUS, you have your RTX 3070, it'll name it, have your drivers up to date, etc., etc. So this is just the simple, if you want to just do a factory overclock and you're not sure, this is how you can do that. You can just click overclock mode, and it'll boost your GPU speed and put the fans on a level and all that. And you can even go down here, the gaming booster, and it'll adjust your CPU, your computer settings as well, so you can just have it optimized like that. And that's one-click easy tuning if that's as far as you want to go with it. But say you want to maybe adjust it to, so you'll go to advanced mode. So this is the same as like with the MSI Afterburner. So I'm going to set this particular, the profile name. You can go down here, hit plus, add a new profile. I'm just calling it overclock. And you can delete it right there like that if you want. So that's advanced mode, or if you don't want it, you can go back to simple, but I want advanced mode. And then down here, it shows me the charts for the memory and where it's jumping to and all that stuff, and the temperatures. Make sure it's all stable. So what you're going to do here is pretty much the same thing. First, I'll go down to the voltage. So in this case, voltage plus 100%. And MSI Afterburner will say plus 100% too. So that way I'm getting that. Now if you, that's as, I wouldn't go beyond that unless you know more about overclocking. Once you feel more comfortable than that, then you can start messing with the voltage and undervolting and stuff like that. I'll cover that in a different video. But so next, say this would be the boost clock. So for the boost clock, let's see. I wonder how far it actually feels comfortable. 191 is what it says it'll go up to. So they've probably determined in the BIOS for my particular card that would be max, but it probably will crash it. So that's where the fine tuning comes in again. With the boost clock, I'm going to, or you can bring it down too, but I want to get a overclock, not an underclock. So I'm gonna just, I feel comfortable at around 115. I got my there, and then the memory clock, I'm gonna just set it to, well, I'm gonna drag it to plus 1200. And the fan speeds, I'll leave the fan speeds on automatic. And there's two fan speeds actually for this. There's a middle fan for my particular card, and then there's two outside fans. So you can really fine tune the fan speeds. I'm gonna leave them on just automatic because they're pretty good at determining that stuff on their own, and I have good cooling in my particular system. Now obviously I'm going to fine tune everything later on, but this is a good stable for this particular card. So then I'm just going to go down here. The power target goes plus 112%. It'll bring the GPU temperature to 90 degrees like you were seeing on the other MSI Afterburner. Now here's something pretty cool. You can have a frame target, say so to reduce the workload maybe and not have as high I guess as high voltage or whatever, you can change, or maybe you're using like a 60 hertz monitor or whatever. Well then, say you're using a 60 hertz monitor, then you can lock that in at 60, because there's no point in it hitting 100 or 144 hertz or whatever, or whatever kind of higher end monitor if you only have 60. In my case, I'm using a 144 hertz monitor, so I can just set the max to 144, so it doesn't go over it. Now this is a target. It's not going to hit that exact thing, but it's going to try and stay around that. But I'll just leave that alone because I'm okay with all that. This is just for a generalized overclock for my card. So there you have it, the memory clock, and then it'll tell you what the memory clock will hit. Originally it's 14,000, I think. What is it saying? 14,090. So I'm gonna plus 12, so it'll jump up to 15,000 to 90 megahertz. The voltage, just set it to 100. The boost, 115, and I could probably get it higher, but this is just as an example for if you want to get a little bit into it. And then max your power target. For this card, it's 112 plus 112%, and GPU temps 90 degrees Celsius. So I just hit apply, and then down here you'll see in the chart that it will change it, so you can see what the max is. The max that it has hit. The max is while it's been running and turned on, while this has been running. That's the max that it has hit for the entire time, and that level. So that's how you'll overclock the ASUS RTX 3070 OC graphics card if you're having difficulties adjusting the core with the MSI Afterburner. Now you can overclock everything in MSI Afterburner with the ASUS graphics card too, but you won't be able to adjust the core voltage, so that's why I'm just using this. So I'll just hit save that profile as well. It's been saved. If I want to change it back, I just hit like user 1 mode, hit apply, and it'll drop it back down to its default settings, or gaming mode, hit apply, and it'll pop it to gaming mode or silent mode or whatever. But I'm gonna just set it on overclock and hit apply, and then that's all you have to do. And you can just minimize everything and bring up your game. Then you can, while it's running, toggle on your on-screen display with Riva Statistics Tuner, and you can fine-tune your ASUS graphics card like that. And so that's how you overclock a 3070 for stable or like one-click stuff, for if you're using like the ASUS one-click like gaming modes or whatever. I think EVGA has something really similar to that if you use their software. So that's just to give you a general idea, and the stable level you can have it at for most cards. If you want to get in depth, you can. There's manuals for usually on the for every individual card if you really want to, get an idea. But that's how you really just fine tune a graphics card for specific games, or if you want an overall fine tune for like if you're trying to do like benchmarking, a generalized overclock with benchmarking and like Port Royal, and you want an overall best, then you can do it like that as well. And so that's how you overclock the RTX 3070 card. So obviously your mileage may vary. They silicon, some silicon's better than others and all that. So it's there's a little bit of playing with it, but there's different levels of overclocking you can do, as you can see. And you can go beyond that, what I've just showed you, and start going with undervolting to save some of the power you're pulling, and that'll adjust the performance of your GPU and all that as well. So these are all different little things you can do. So I hope that helps you get an idea for overclocking. It gives you a good entryway into overclocking if you're looking for specifically overclocking for the ASUS Tuf gaming card, or just for the RTX 3070 in general. I hope that helps you just get an idea of what you need to do with those cards, and how you can start fine-tuning and getting them specifically tailored to the different games you're playing. So with that, I'll see you guys later. I'm actually going to start playing me some Cyberpunk now, and everybody, stay safe and stay healthy. And oh, by the way, I will be putting all the links down, the details below, so you can find all the software and download it, so you won't have any problems with that. And also, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. So thanks for watching, guys.